Hi, I'm Gina Wilde. I'm the co-founder of Alchemy Yarns. I'm also a textile artist, a knitwear designer, and an author. People often ask me how I learned to knit. I started my career in fiber arts when I was in undergraduate school. I learned to weave on an old loom in the studio at my undergraduate college and immediately fell in love with textile arts. When I left college, I moved to New York briefly to go to graduate school, but didn't stay. Manhattan was just a bit much for my 21 years. So I moved to Washington, D.C., where I took my first job as a graphic artist in the United States Senate. This was the Reagan era and was really not my political climate, nor the notion of wearing pantyhose and going into an office. My dream of a great job, having been a wild and pretty freelance studio artist up to that point. So I put on the pantyhose and started the job as a graphic artist and was really miserable in that role. Fortunately, I had the great favor of meeting the United States Senate nurse, Beverly, who was an expert knitter. She heard that I had a passion for weaving and offered to spend her lunches teaching me to knit. In that era, 3-hour lunches were protocol, so I would pack up my little knit needles and yarn and head over to the infirmary and take my knit lessons with Nurse Beverly. She was a great teacher, very strict, very much like a nurse, but she taught me great skills about the importance of really caring about the quality of one's work, the discipline that it takes to see a piece all the way through, and taught me other great life lessons while we became friends during that time. I carried that passion for knitting for the next 20 years as I made my living as a sculptor. In 2002, my sweet husband was laid off from his job in the .com industry, and we felt like since we just turned 40 at that time, it was really time for new invention in our lives. So I saw in the market, when I would go out and try to buy fiber for my knit projects, I was always looking for a luxury natural fiber, a silk, mohair, angora, something that was all natural, and conversely I really sought bright, intense, vivid color. At that time in the market, one could find bright colors, but they would be applied to a nylon or polyester or some dreadful synthetic yarn. And if one were to find a pure silk or a mohair, the colors would be very muted and subdued and earth tones. So I felt like if I could bridge those two components, the really bright color on a beautiful luxury fiber, that I could fulfill my need for what my aesthetic was for creating knitwear. And if that was something that I was longing for, perhaps other people would be as well. In the early part of this decade, after 9/11, we saw a great return to knitting. After the events of that day, people seemed to want to stay home more and make things and be creative and focus on home activities. It was also fueled by the popularity of the great Debbie Stoller, who founded the Stitch and Bitch movement, and we saw knitters returning to the craft in a way that really hadn't been seen before. So it was a great time to launch the company in 2002 because there was this incredibly vivid interest in the market, and at the same time we were able to offer a product that wasn't available for textile artists around the world. We started small, or intended to, but by the time we brought out our line in the spring of 2003, we had 16 yarn types, about 80 colors, and a splattering of designs which we could share with the knitting public.